right. Here we are. Derek, we are live. I hope we're live. Hopefully, it would be showing up on your Facebook page. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Oh, now I don't hear you. Are you there? Can you, are you, yo, you froze up. I don't know if you can hear me, but let me try this. Sit tight. You know, this is just what we were talking about before we went live. So, um, oh, there, wait, there you are. Now you're back. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I'm going to play a little bit of. Can you hear me okay, Derek? Are you hearing me? Oh, okay. Wow. Um, this is off of Derek's. This is something off of Derek's album. While we're waiting for Derek to come back. Okay, hang with us. So, hosting a social comments display here, hosting. Okay, while I'm waiting for Derek to come back, I am playing some of his music. Hey, KJ. Oh. There you are.
There you are. Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Okay, let's hope that it stays.
It's funny. I think I might have jinxed it because I said, as long as the internet doesn't anything goof on us, it'll be great.
Right.
And then, of course, it did.
That's wishful thinking. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so I was playing something off of your new album,
Cool.
and
Thank you.
11 years later, I want to ask you. So was that 11 years after your first album?
Exactly. Yeah. My first album came out in 2009, and when trying to search for a title for this record, somehow that came up. Maybe I'll just call it 11 years later because it is 11 years later, and it stuck.
Well, I did this thing on Monday night where I just sat at 11 o'clock and just talked and played some music. And I played several tracks off of this song, and everybody loved it.
Cool.
And the thing that I was noticing about it is there are stylistically, it seems like the songs are different. Like you were covering some different genres a little bit on the music.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff in there. It's not just a funk record. It's not just a jazz record. It's not just a whatever rock record. It's kind of got a little bit of, a lot of different genres in there. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
eclectic.
So what was it like? Did you record that during the pandemic? Have you been working on it for a while? Or
I just started during the pandemic. It was like my pandemic project. So I was My last gig was in Vegas. I was there in March with Shania. We had just started a run, so we had a couple of rehearsals and we had two shows, and then that was it. We got canceled after the second show, which is March 14th. We were kind of one of the seemed like one of the last holdouts. Like everybody else was coming home from tour already, and we didn't know what was going to go on with us. But of course, yeah, we got canceled. So I just came home, and um, the idea to make a record was kind of on my mind. Like I wanted to do it. I hadn't, obviously it had been 11 years, and I just kind of didn't have the time. And then when I came home from Vegas, I was like, you know what? I've got time now. Like now's the time to do it. I don't know how long I'm going to be off. I don't know how long this pandemic thing's going to last. So I better get to work. So I just started writing tunes pretty much immediately after I got home and just started putting the album together. Yeah.
And where did you record it? Did you record it there in your house?
No, we recorded it at Pliers Studio in Santa Clarita. It's Jim Scott's studio,
Hmm.
and Jim Scott's the producer of the record. He's got an amazing studio just full of analog and vintage gear, and he does everything on an analog console and very old school. And I'd done a session there. I did a record there a few years back just as a session player, and just fell in love with the studio. So when it came time to like start planning this, I reached out to Jim and just wanted to see if he'd be down to produce it, and if his studio was available, if he was available, if I could afford him, all that stuff. So we started talking, and I sent him some demos, and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So yeah, we just did everything. We did it, the old school way. We just had four of us in a room playing together. Um, and just we recorded it that way. And it's just kind of the way it's the record I wanted to make. I mean,
Mm.
sure, it's way more budget friendly to do it remotely, where you pass tracks around, everybody overdubs their parts, but I wanted to do it as a band.
So you got together as a band and did it in just everybody at the same time in the old school ways.
Yeah, for the most part, it was like the core band. There's four of us. It's a four-piece band as the core, but then there are some overdubs. Like I had horn section do three songs, and I had a couple other players overdub remotely. I had one guy in New York and one guy in Nashville, one guy in Vegas, and then the horn section was in Vegas. So I took after like the basics were the four-piece band, and then after we got all the basics done, I took the roughs out to Vegas. I booked a studio in Vegas. The horn section is called the Fat City Horns. They're a Vegas-based horn section. And I knew I wanted them on the record, and their arranger arranged all the horn parts. So I took the basics out to Vegas and booked a studio and had them come in for a session and overdub on three songs.
Okay, I
Yeah.
was talking on another show about this. What what it used to be like to buy an album, go home, listen to it,
Hmm.
pull out the liner notes,
Yeah.
see who was playing,
Yeah.
and go, oh, and that's where they recorded it. Oh,
Right.
we don't do that anymore. So who was in the band? Who'd you have?
Right. Well, we do. I did that this time. I did vinyl, and in the vinyl, it has all the info. It has all the credits,
Oh,
and it
cool.
has a list of all my gear. All the nerdy stuff. Um, Hold on one second. I'm just going to turn my mic down. I don't need to hear myself that loud. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I did vinyl and did all the credits because yeah, you're right. Like that's how we musicians, or at least we older musicians, remember listening to music, and that's how I like to listen to music. I love to put a record on. Same thing. Sit down, read the liner notes as I listen to it, see who played on it, read whatever notes people made. I love that whole experience of listening to a record. So when it came time to me for me to make this record, that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, so that's what I did. And then also, in addition to selling the vinyl, I sell these 8-track tapes that are just kind of a novelty item. That I'm basically selling a USB drive with the album in WAV and MP3 format, which also has a PDF booklet in it. So I sell the USB drives, but I stick them to these 8-track tapes that have my artwork on them, and I
Eight
sell that
track
as
tapes.
well. Yeah, so the eight
Okay.
tracks. The 8-tracks don't have my music on. The 8-tracks are just like that's the packaging for the USB stick.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gotcha.
but
So,
same thing. It has the PDF on it with the.
well, let me
Yeah.
ask you, in doing that, are you able to keep a bigger percentage of the money? Like I bought the stuff off of iTunes. Whenever I play
Oh,
anybody's music, I
well,
buy it
thanks
off
for
of
thanks for
iTunes.
buying it. I would have sent it to you, but thanks for buying it.
Yeah,
I
no,
appreciate it.
well, it's just what I just need to do it. I feel if I'm going to play your song, I'm going to buy it. If I'm going to play your
Cool,
record, I'm going to buy it.
cool. Thank
So,
you.
now you get a smaller percentage off of iTunes.
Sure.
How is it off of when you sell it yourself? Do you get a is it just
Well, I'm not fulfilling the orders for myself. Like I'm not shipping myself because I
okay?
just didn't want to do that. So I have a merch company called Hello Merch that does a lot of indie merch. And so basically I send them all the product. I sent them a ton of records, a ton of the 8-track tapes. And then people can order that. Like that's my web store. Like if you go to my website, it goes to my official store, which is hosted by Hello Merch. So they do all the shipping and they take, I think the deal with them for music is they take 10%. So I don't think that's bad, you know?
Well, that's better. Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I mean,
Well,
when I am able to start doing gigs, of course, like I'll sell, product at the gigs, and of
right.
course, in that case, I'll keep everything, unless there's a deal with the club. Some clubs have a thing where they keep a percentage of the merch,
Mm.
but um, yeah, hopefully when I do gigs, I'll be able to keep 100%, you know?
This is really random, but if I could get everybody to have your mic and your setup and have your voice, I could then make a podcast out of my shows.
I'm glad it's working out because really I know nothing about this. I had an extra 58 and I had a little boom arm and I just plugged it into my interface and here we go. So
It
I'm
it's
glad it's
really
sounding good.
Derek, it's really pretty simple, but like we were saying just before we went live, a lot of people don't even have a clue how to do that or even
Yeah,
what a 58 is.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it sounds great. And
Cool.
you actually have a good speaking voice. Maybe you could get
Cool.
into radio or something.
Cool. I don't know if this bass thing doesn't work out. If gigs don't come back, you know.
well, let's talk about that gig. So there's a couple of things you were doing. I know you did Air Supply for a while.
Yep, I was with them in 2016 and 2017. Basically, I was with Air Supply like in between Shania Twain runs. Like I did a big tour with Shania in 2015, and then she took 2016 off to make a record. So luckily, that's when I got the Air Supply call. So I joined them, and I was with them until Shania started getting busy again. Like it was, we were doing. She released the record, and then we did a bunch of promo stuff in 2017, and that was getting busy, and it just came to a time when I just kind of had to leave Air Supply. As fun as it was, I just opted to, you know, stick around with Shania.
A-
Um,
a-
but it was a
And
fun
Sh-
band.
and Shania was doing a residency in Las Vegas, and you were doing that.
Well, no, she did a residency from 2012 to 2014 that I was not involved in.
Okay.
And then after her residency, she did a tour and she changed the band up a little bit, and that's when I got the gig with her.
Oh, okay.
So I was with her 2015. Then she made the record 2016. Then all of 2017, we um, we did like a big promo tour and stuff. And then she started a new Vegas residency at the end of 2019, and so I've been doing that.
Okay. And and that was the one that March 14th seems to be the day because that was the day my last gig was.
Okay.
And uh, I've heard a lot of people their last day was March 14th. So that was the
Yeah.
last day there for her.
It was a
But
Saturday. Yeah, so I think it
yeah.
was just because it was a weekend, people had gigs that still stayed on, and then, after that weekend, that's when kinda everything just got shut down.
So somebody joining in made this comment. 11 years later is a great CD. I bought it the other night.
That's super nice. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
JC.
JC. Much
So
appreciated.
are you seeing the comments there in
I
the
am. I'm
bottom?
seeing them on the right
Okay.
here. Yeah, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, so I don't have the really expensive that lets me actually respond within this platform. It,
Okay.
well, here's the thing with this platform, you actually have to create a specific Facebook page and then send it to that. You can't put it to your like my generic page. It won't let
Huh.
me. It's
Oh,
really
wow.
silly.
Interesting. Okay. I've never done anything on this before, the restream.
Yeah, I mean it works all right. I've had a couple of them that I use. This one seems to be allowing me to bring multiple guests in, and it's different than Zoom, and I can do different things with it than Zoom
Mhm.
allows me to do.
Right on. And you know what?
So,
I'm just seeing JC's comment here. Can I get the player credit somewhere? Um, so JC, I don't know if you bought a download via iTunes or anything like that. Unfortunately, with iTunes, um, my distributor is not able to do PDF. Um, PDF booklets, unfortunately. So I do have a PDF booklet that I include with my little USB drive. If you message me on Facebook, I will send you the PDF, and it has all the liner notes and credits and gear list and all that, all that nerdy stuff. Oh, from Amazon, yeah, same thing. Amazon, they couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't do a PDF for some reason. So um, when I sell downloads via Bandcamp, the PDF is included, but for some reason those services like iTunes and Amazon. But yeah, just send me a Facebook message, and I'll send you that PDF. Um,
Who
or
was
we
the
could talk about it. I could tell you who played on it because I think you did ask me that, and then I took it in a different direction.
No, that's fine. Who played drums and guitar and keys?
Yeah, so the core band, the core four-piece band was Randy Cook on drums and Ty Bailey on keys and Joshua Ray Gooch on guitar. Joshua is my bandmate with Shania, and Ty Bailey he plays keys with Katy Perry. That's his main gig, but he does a lot of stuff, and we've done some gigs together around town. And yeah,
So, well, I don't, I want to stay on this, but I'm also thinking, you recently have been doing Gwen Stefani,
yeah.
and uh, was that? I have a question about the Jimmy Fallon show. You did that,
Hmm.
and you also did a Good Morning. Was it Good Morning
Today's
America?
show.
The Today Show.
Uh-huh.
So, did you film that in that? There's a couple of those sound stages in Van Nuys with
Mhm.
the. Is that where you shot that?
We shot it at Third Encore in North Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, because the way those things are now, like no one's actually playing on set on those talk shows anymore, or at least now during the pandemic. Like, because then you'd have to fly, and it's not safe to fly. And so basically, how those things are working now is people just pre-tape their segments. So we went into Third Encore. We had to check in the night before and get a COVID test.
Hmm.
Um, they had a little station, had like a little, somebody to administer the tests. And so we did that. Once you're clear, then you can go in the room. So it was a small crew, small video crew, just a four-piece band and four dancers, kind of a smaller band and show than we normally do. Um, so we all got tested, went in there, we stayed masked up, and then we knocked out 5 shows in one day.
Mm,
So we
okay.
did 4 TV shows and one virtual corporate show for Google.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And so Third Encore has is just the big room that they have the video wall set up in.
It's
Yeah.
it's not the biggest room. It's I think it was Studio F. It's one of the ones
Hmm.
towards the front.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just kind of set up one of their studios as like a dedicated video room. And I know a lot of people are doing their, talk show musical guest performances there and a lot of video shoots, you know.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the thing when you shoot those, the band performs, but there isn't any talking interaction or anything. You just play and
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, because you're not there with the host,
Right.
because usually, like, you do those shows and it's kind of fun, like, Jimmy Fallon comes up and shakes hands with everybody and,
Yeah.
he's all hyper, it's kind of fun, and, you get to hear the roots before and after you play, and it's cool,
Right.
like, that stuff's so fun to do, but, yeah, in this thing, it's just like we just pre-taped a segment, we just, knocked out 4 shows, like I said, and then they just air it, on the show.
And let me, is that Devin Eisenbarger
Mhm.
playing guitar?
She was filling in with us, yeah. Unfortunately, our regular guitarist couldn't make it, and, so Devin got the call, and,
Sh-
she did great. She was
She's
awesome.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she
Yeah.
was cool.
Okay. So, um, how long, how now that we're talking about live music, uh, i- is there any, are you going to be doing more of these kinds of things with Gwen? Is there any kind of talk of touring with
We'll
Shania?
see. We'll see. I mean, I don't think anybody really knows at this point because, for the first few months of the pandemic, people were starting to plan like, okay, well, this is only going to last a few months. We'll be back on the road in the summer because we had a whole summer tour planning all this, and of course, like that fell apart. And now I just don't think anybody's really planning too far ahead right now because we just don't know what we can do. Um, Gwen is. Releasing new music, like the song that we did on those shows. It was a new single, and she said she's recorded more. So I think an album is probably coming at some point. And usually, when someone drops an album, that means there's going to be a tour as well. But you know, we're still in a place where there's no live music. So we just don't know. We're just still in the holding pattern, and if some TV shows come up, management will call us. If there's anything to talk about tour wise, they'll let us know. But right now, we're just still in that holding pattern.
And what about the Las Vegas residencies? Have you heard anything about how that's all going to come down the
No,
pipe?
no. I mean, Vegas is open. Like a lot of the hotels and casinos are open, but no shows or no big shows, and no nightclubs. So the
Hmm.
things where like a lot of people gather, they're not doing those. Or some of the lounges are open, and there are some bands playing in like some bars and lounges, which is cool. But as far as like the big shows, they're not doing them, and we don't know when. I'm just guessing late summer, but that's only my guess. Like there's no one's told us anything because no one knows anything.
Everything is so completely up in the air.
Yeah,
There's just
yeah.
no.
Well,
Uh,
it's like, we tried to get back to things like I think, probably in like the fall, and, they started trying to open things and just seeing how that worked. But of course that just led to just more and more cases. So they're not going to make that mistake again.
yeah. So, what about all of those bases in the back you got sitting behind you?
Uh-huh.
What are now? Does Annette get? Are Do you geek out on all the bases and does she go, did you just get another base? You have any
Oh,
of that?
that happens all the time. She always laughs that like every time I like go out of town for a tour or a gig or something, a bass shows up. Because that
Oh,
does happen. Like like a bass will arrive when I'm not even home, like I'm gone, on a tour or something. It's a sickness. Yeah. It used to be that I would, before some tour, if I got like a new gig or new tour or something, and maybe there was a certain bass that I thought would be good for that tour, I would buy that for the tour, you know. But now it's just like, now that reverb is out there, it's getting out of hand. I'll just be browsing reverb some night and see something unique, and you know, yeah, it's gotten out of hand. But like, so I'm trying to sell a few things now because I do have some basses that I just don't play.
mm.
All the ones that are still up there on the hooks behind me, those are all keepers. Those are all basses that I love and all have a purpose and different sounds. And some of them I use in my gigs. I've got a handful of other ones. Like I keep stuff in storage with both Gwen and Shania. Like I keep a set of gear with both of them, and that like when we do our gigs, they bring it out to us. So I've got like 5 basses out with Shania in her storage. I've got two with Gwen right now because I brought one home. Yeah. So
So
there's a
if
lot.
you get called, you don't have to fly with the base because you'll show up and the base will be there.
If it's a one off, then I'll bring a bass. I'll fly
Mm.
with a bass. But when we do our Vegas residency runs, like that stuff just stays in a locker, and they take
Gwen Gwen had a Vegas thing
it.
too, right?
Yeah, I mean that's how I've been able to juggle both gigs is because the planets kind of aligned. I got super lucky, and they both ended up doing residencies in the same theater. So obviously they're not going to overlap. So they alternate. There's like, when we were still doing shows, we were alternating in the theater. It was like Gwen, Shania, Christina Aguilera, um, Def Leppard for a bit, Kelly Clarkson was coming in. There's like all these artists that rotate in the theater. So the fact that Gwen and Shania were in the same theater, I was able to juggle both for a bit.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
really
So
cool.
so we'll see. Like when we do get back to Vegas, Gwen still has. We had one run left. We had one. We were supposed to be there in May, and that was supposed to be it. That was supposed to be the end of the Vegas residency. But I'm assuming we're going to make that up. Plus, we have about 4 other shows to make up because early last year Gwen got really sick, and we had to cancel a few shows. So
Mm.
we've got some stuff to make up with her. So I'm assuming that I'll be back in Vegas with both of them at some point.
Eh,
And we'll see.
And what are they like in terms of rehearsing and making sure everything is tight and polished? Are they uh, do they rehearse a lot, make you for weeks to make sure everything is
Um,
going, or is it a little
well,
looser?
when we were putting the show together, yeah, when I joined Gwen and when the residency show was being put together, we rehearsed for about a month, and it was basically like we did about a week of band rehearsals. The band was good. Like we've got 2 guys from No Doubt that know all this stuff. We got a drummer that's been with her for a few years. So the only new people were me and the guitarist, and so like we did band rehearsals for about a week, and then we were cool. And then we moved into Universal Studios and into a big soundstage and practiced with the set, with the dancers, choreography, all that stuff. So then at that point in production rehearsals, it's more about like the show itself, than like the music and the notes. So, but altogether, that was about a month of rehearsals leading up to it, and then once that was set, like we don't really rehearse anymore. Like we'll go to for each Vegas run we do. Like each run is about 3 weeks, and then there's maybe like a month or two in between where we don't do anything. So before each run in Vegas, we'll go out a couple days early. We'll rehearse for like 2 days. We'll do like one day without Gwen, and then she'll come in for one day, and we'll just run the show, and then we start the next night. So we'll do like 2 days of rehearsal, and in the same with Shania. Like we rehearse for about a month putting the show together, and then before each run, we'll do like two rehearsals.
Well, I have a couple of questions, but there's a question in the chat about bases. Do you see
Hmm.
that?
All
Um,
right.
Ricky, but I'm a Fender man. Recently got a Sire V7.
Yeah, those are cool.
A lot of pros and cons. Have do you got anything to
To,
uh,
he means
throw
to
on
throw in on that.
and
Yeah.
throw in that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, I don't discriminate when it comes to basses. I like a lot of different kinds of basses, and especially like being a session player. I like to have a lot of different sounds at my disposal. So I love my Rick. It's such a fun bass to play. It doesn't see a ton of action. There's a rock band I play in called the Dirty Diamond, and the Rick is like the bass I use with that. It's a great rock bass. Sounds great with a pick. Um, I use pretty much just the front pickup with it, and I just love that tone. And I've got round wounds on it. They also sound great with flats. So the Ricks are super fun. It just depends on what you're into. I mean, obviously, I love Fenders. I've got a few P basses, got a jazz bass, got a Mustang. Um, so I love Fenders. Um, the Sires are really cool. I have one of the regular 4 string jazz basses, the Marcus Miller jazz bass, and it's great. Um, Yeah, so I don't know. I like all different kinds of basses. They all sound different. But I'm a fan of the Rick. I'm a fan of Fender P basses. Big fan of those. Yeah,
So so when you think of a bass, the first thing you think of is what the gig is and what the music is going to be played, and then you'll take the bass for that gig.
yeah, for sure. Because
Like
they,
when you're play like when you go down to Lucky Strike and
mhm.
play down there, that's pretty much a rock thing, right?
For pop and rock, it depends on who the guests are. Because we've different guests every time we do it, and we do different material. So I'd say most of the time I'm bringing a P bass to that gig. But yeah, sometimes there's something different. Like I've brought the Rick down for that a bunch. Um, I've brought the Hofner if we're doing like some Beatles stuff. Um, I bring a keyboard. I always do some synth based stuff. There's usually every time we do it, there's something that I got to play on synth bass.
I
Yeah,
a lot of time in today's music, and then this question is a month a standard rehearsal period for a tour? I've heard that it can be much longer
it
with
depends on the artist. I don't know if I've ever rehearsed more than a month for a tour. Um, I think that's kind of standard, and I've done some tours where it's only 2 weeks.
Mhm.
It depends on the production, really, because if it's a pretty limited production as far as like video and lights and dancers and all that, if it's just like the band and the artist, then usually it's just a couple weeks because there's not a lot to put together. Because usually, like for these tours, the bands that the artists will choose, like we're all professionals. We all learn our stuff ahead of time, and we come in and we tweak things, but we don't spend too much time like just learning the material. We will maybe focus on music for a week and then focus on the show as a whole for another week. And
Got to
yeah,
make
so
sure you get your dance steps down.
all of that. It's not so much that. Luckily, I've never been on a tour where they told us how to move on stage. They just told us where to be on stage. Like, so for every
Oh,
kind of pop tour I've done, they'll bring in some kind of choreographer that will plan the show as far as like where people are on stage. They're like, okay, for this song, we need the bass player and the guitarist to come out front. So you're going to be on opposite sides of the stage here. So whatever we do once we're at that place on the stage is kind of up to us. Like, luckily, I haven't um, had to do like specific choreography. because I just that's not my not my
Not
thing, you know.
not like Bruno Mars, like kind of stuff that those guys do.
No, 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 totally. Yeah, I haven't been a part of anything like that. But I gotta say, like, it looks awesome when his band is up there moving in sync like that. It works. Like from a show standpoint, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So if I was in something like that, I would I would do it. You know, if it was a thing like Bruno. But I've seen other musicians and other bands with other artists that had to do choreography and they make them do some goofy stuff. So, you know,
The one thing I do have to say about Bruno, the stuff they do is really hip, slick, and cool.
it's
It's
cool.
not goofy.
It's like, yeah, it's like I mean, it's like, you know, modern day James Brown kind of thing, you know. It's cool. It works. I'm a Bruno fan. But yeah, yeah, luckily, you know, the kind of gigs I've been on, they've all been pretty loose. It's just like, yeah, they tell us where to be on stage and then however we move is up to us.
Yeah, and then I want to circle back to the keyboard. How does Shania do that, and does Gwen? Because a lot of pop music today, even when I go out and do sound for almost all the bands I do now, the bass players, if they're playing any kind of pop, are usually bringing a small keyboard now
Mhm.
because of a lot of pop music is being recorded with synth bass, and you can't get as low on a bass guitar as you can on the synth bass. Are you
Mhm.
having to do that more and more now, and always
I've been
carry?
doing it for quite a while. You know, I think as far as like touring kind of stuff goes, I think I started playing synth bass back when I was doing Dancing with the Stars tours because that's like we covered so much stuff, and so a lot of the material we had like we had some synth based stuff, but that's I mean even that some of that goes back to the '70s. Like if we played like some Michael Jackson or Stevie Wonder stuff from the '70s, a lot of that is you know Moog based,
Mm,
and I love playing it. Like I just love sonically, I love the way it sounds, and you can't really emulate it on bass. There are so many different synth pedals and stuff, but nothing comes close to just playing a synth. And for me, I'm all
mm,
about the sound more than the instrument itself. So like if the keyboard is the right sound, then I'm totally down to play it. Um, but having said that, with Gwen, I don't play key bass with Gwen. I asked that when I joined the band. I'm like, do you want because yeah, some of her music, some of her solo music has key bass, you know, synth bass. And so I asked the musical director, and he just kind of said, you know, we've got two keyboardists in the band that can cover stuff. And he's like, I just rather have you play bass, and that way you're free to run around, you know, the stage and stuff like that. And so with her, on some of the songs that do have key bass, a lot of times I'm doubling it on real
mm,
bass. Also, I'm using effects like I use a Kemper Profiler with her, which has a lot of great built-in effects. So a lot of what I do with her to emulate synth bass is I use a basically a bass octave pedal with the dry signal turned off. So it's like a you know the classic Boss OC2 octave pedal with no dry signal. So it just kind of sounds subby and synthy, and it actually works well with some of her stuff. Like some of the synth-based sounds on some of her material is that sound. So
mm.
I come really close by doing that. So yeah. So with her, I've never actually played synth bass, but with Shania, I played on a couple of songs.
Hmm. And you have a pretty big pedal board rig with things, or just real something real
I
simple?
I have in the past, and I do have a pedal board that I use when I'm doing my own stuff because I do love analog pedals. Um, so I do have a pretty big pedal board with like different stuff for when I'm doing my own thing. But when I'm doing Gwen and Shania, it's all Kemper Profiler.
Mm.
Yeah,
So,
so no pedals, no controller on stage at all. It's all off stage and MIDI controlled. I've programmed all my sounds, like my amps and effects are all in the Kemper, and all my patch changes are done via MIDI, via the show computer. So I'm not stepping on anything on the stage. No pedals. It's all just controlled via MIDI, and it's pretty
are
cool.
you listening to a lot of tracks when you perform?
It depends on the song. You know, if there are some things that the band can't cover, like some loopy things or some strings or some extra um, you know, extra synth stuff. A lot of that they put on tracks. Um, but I got to say, with both of my gigs, they're very tasteful with tracks because I've heard about a lot of other gigs where they just put everything on tracks, and you don't even know if the band is like in the house or not because there's so many tracks. But with both Gwen and Shania, both of our musical directors have done a good job in like sorting through everything and only putting in what we need, like only putting in the parts that the live band can't actually
Mm,
cover. You know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
it makes it a little more organic. And between me and what I think other people recognize is there's something when when it isn't the live band you're actually hearing, the connection isn't the same as if you're actually feeling the live music. And
Absolutely not.
it really makes a difference, I think, in how people respond to the music.
I think so, and I think a lot of people maybe couldn't tell you what it was that was making them respond differently if they're not musicians, you know? But
Yeah.
I think if you explained it to them, broke it down, say, "Okay, here's just the album tracks, and here's the live band playing it. Notice a difference, like, especially in the live show," you know?
Hey, and when you're playing with Gwen, now a couple of the guys in the band are from No Doubt, but
Mhm.
are you do you ever go and go like we're just does it feel like you're really No Doubt or are you just Gwen Stefani?
No, I mean, No Doubt was, their own thing, and they were such a great band, and I'm a fan. Like, I love Tony's playing, and they had such a vibe as a band. So, of course, like when we're playing those songs, we play all the hits, and so I'm trying to embody the spirit, of Tony's playing as much as I can. But of course, he's him, and I'm me, and I'm not going to sound exactly like him, but I try to get as close as possible, just because I am a fan, and the parts that he created were great, and it's obviously an honor to play them. So, but the two guys in our band that are from No Doubt are the two keyboard player, horn player, backup singers. They're both kind of utility guys. One plays trumpet and keys and sings, and the other plays trombone and keys and sings. And they've both been in No Doubt since the '90s. So you know, they've been
Wow,
for a long time.
that's like a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it's interesting because they were always in the band, but you never see them, like, on the album covers or any of the promo. They were always kinda like the hired guns, they somehow never got considered full band members, but they were always in the band,
Mm,
They
interesting.
were like utility players that were always there, but for some reason just, were always sidemen, the 2 sidemen with No Doubt.
Yeah. What do you prefer um touring or do you prefer doing more studio work or are you okay just kind of doing both because um you like both things or
I love both things, and if I had to choose, I would probably choose touring because I love playing live and I love traveling. That's really what I'm into. It's what got me into playing bass in the first place. But I like doing both. I like the fact that you know, when I'm in town, I do get called for some sessions. Although these days, it seems like it's rare to actually go to a studio and do sessions with other musicians. Like, I get hit up a lot just to do tracks just remotely. People send me music, I play bass on it, I send it back. And that's the way a lot of session players are doing things these days. And it's cool because I can do it from anywhere. I'll bring a mobile rig with me when I'm on the road, and so I can do tracks on the road.
what
But
do you
you know,
what do you record into just what do you use just take your computer interface and use Logic or Pro Tools or
yeah, I've
something.
I've got a pretty simple setup for when I'm on the road. I just have my laptop and I have an Apogee One, which is a little compact interface, and um, I've been using a Noble Tube DI for quite a while, and it's great. And I usually do have that on the road with me. So between the Noble DI, the Apogee interface, and the laptop, I'm good. And if I need to process the signal at all, I've got great plugins. Some great compressors, and I've been using the Apogee new ECS channel strip. That's really cool. It's like an analog console. So yeah, it's pretty simple setup I have on the road.
I don't think people are going to be doing studios much anymore. It seems like it's going to home studios
Yeah,
where everybody's just sending their parts to each other.
it's been going that way for quite a while. I mean, a lot of the big studios have closed. I mean, you kind of need the big studios for drums. Like, you need good drum rooms. But as far as, like, bass players and guitarists and keyboardists, a lot of us just track remotely.
I was thinking about that because I set up a kick drum and a snare in this little room I have, and I was overdubbing a couple of things. And this little tiny room, it doesn't work. All the stuff bleeds. In order to do drums right, you kind of need a good room.
Yeah, I mean, you can try to emulate it with plugins and reverbs and things like that,
Mhm.
but there's nothing like just, a drum set in, like, a live room with high ceilings, that just sounds sounds like a studio, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I uh, now that you tour, I'm my mind is kind of floating around because I'm thinking about the studio stuff and I'm thinking about touring and I'm thinking about your wife
Mhm.
and you and Annette. And I have to say, one of the coolest things I had, you had a little party at your house and you hired a band to come and play
Mhm.
because the two of you were in Vegas and saw this band and you loved them so much, you hired them to come and play in your backyard.
Yeah.
And I came and did sound. And,
Yeah.
you know, the two of you seem to have this really beautiful relationship. I've never seen two people more respectful and kind to each other than the two of you.
Mm.
And I see that she gets to come to a lot of your gigs, and
Mhm.
that helps it seem not so bad
For
when
sure.
if you're touring.
Yeah, well, that's one cool thing about doing the Vegas residencies. It's like I'm in the same spot. It's close to home. I've got days off, you know. So yeah, she comes out to that quite a bit, you know. So that makes it easy because a lot of times if I'm touring, I'm out of the country or somewhere where it's hard to have her come out and visit. Like if I'm in one city for a few days, then it makes sense, and she comes out and hangs out. But if it's just go go go, one different city every day, it can't really have her come out. Like it's difficult to have your spouse come out in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I luckily I've been fortunate. I've been on some gigs um where it's just been family friendly, or it's just we've been in this, we've done some things where we've been in one city for multiple days, things like that. But we always try to work it out. We look at the schedule and figure out when the best times for visits are, and yeah, the Vegas things have been great because it's easy. Like I can come home on days off, or she can come out there and we'll hang out.
You know, it's not too far of a drive. It's only like three and
It's
a
a
half
piece of cake.
hours.
Yeah, or a 45-minute flight from Burbank to Vegas. Like it's a piece of cake.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really easy.
yeah,
So now back to this party. That
yeah.
band was such a good band. It was so
They're
much
awesome.
fun in your backyard. Now, I think we need to do that again.
Oh man,
What?
would love to. Well, we did that for both of our 40th birthday parties. So maybe we'll do it for our 50th. Um, yeah, that was fun. They were a band that we were out in Vegas and we were having dinner in one of the restaurants at Mandalay Bay, and they've got the lounge there in the middle of Mandalay Bay, and we just heard this band that sounded great, and the singer was doing the most spot on Michael McDonald impression I've ever heard. And we were just having dinner. We're like, man, we got to go check these guys out after dinner. We went there, and so they were like a yacht rock cover band, which now there's a lot of those. It became kind of a shtick. There's a lot of bands doing the yacht rock thing, but at that time, we hadn't really heard that, and they're all great musicians, like great singers and players, and they were called the Guilty Pleasures. And we were talking that night. We just became friends with them. We had some mutual friends and whatnot, and we just exchanged contact info. And then, yeah, when it came time to plan Annette's 40th, I was like, we should see if those guys would just come out and play on our back deck, you know. And we called them, and luckily we worked it out, and luckily you were available to come do an awesome job on sound, and
Thanks.
that was so fun.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, I want to thank you for that because Mike, the guitar player,
Mm.
and I have become pretty good friends.
Oh, cool.
And he has or had a show band that would do. They were called, I forget the name of it, but they would write a song with a group of people. It was some sort of corporate
Yeah, song division.
building. Yeah, so they would
Yeah,
have all the people get together and come up with lyrics, and they'd write the song, and then they perform the songs that they've written.
yeah.
And he did a few in the LA area here, and he called me to do sound.
Did I
So
ever do one with you? Because he got me on a few of those as well. I can't remember if we did one together or not.
I'm, you know what? You might.
We may have. I don't
There
know.
was one in Long Beach that you might have.
I don't know if I did Long Beach. I did.
No,
I did a
I
couple
don't
in the
think so.
San
I did a
Diego
couple of
area.
them.
Okay. Yeah, I did a few. He did a couple with the songwriting thing. Then there were a couple where he was doing like live band karaoke at these corporate events. I did a couple of those. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, he was a great guy,
Yeah. Mike's
and
awesome.
so you want to do it again, and we want to make sure that we open up and you can do uh, the Guilty Pleasures, man. Those guys were really good. They
Would
were
be
really
awesome.
good.
Unfortunately, they're not really a band anymore. Because like, like I said, we became friends with all the guys, and with all the time that I've been spending in Vegas, I hit them up every now and then, and sometimes they do have gigs, and I go see them. But that band as a unit doesn't really play much anymore. They did like little duo and trio versions of it, and the singer John, who does the greatest Michael McDonald, I think he just got burnt on the shtick because he's a
Uh,
great singer and a great sax player and a great bass player. He's like an amazing musician, and we were having coffee out in Vegas a while back, and he was just saying that he's just not into doing the Michael McDonald thing anymore. Like as
mm,
good as he is, I think he's just sick of the shtick, and if he sings, he wants to sing as himself, which I can respect.
yeah, I'm going. There's another Derek Frank on here that says, "What's up,
What's up?
other Derek
What's
Frank?"
up, Derek Frank? Yeah, Nashville, Derek Frank. Yeah, yeah. We met on Facebook years ago, and then I was playing in Nashville. He lives in Nashville, and he's another great musician, singer, songwriter, guitarist, drummer. And he was like, "Man, you're going to be in Nashville. We have to meet." So like we met after my gig and hung out. We became friends, and so he's been out to a few of my shows out there, and um, he's working with some gear companies right now with Atlantic High Ukuleles and Hercules stands, and so I've been working with both those companies as well. And yeah, we always make sure that at the NAM show, take pictures with our NAM badges with the same name.
Oh, that's cool. I can see the Derek Frank band now.
Yeah.
That and,
Right? Yeah, I
and
mean, yeah,
everybody
we've
and
never
people
played
would,
together, but maybe we need to.
yeah, they'd come up and say, "Which one is Derek and which one is Frank?"
Yeah, 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 right.
You'd get that.
But it does get confusing because like we both get tagged in each other's stuff on Facebook all the time. And I remember once he was talking to a string company that I had worked with years ago, and he was talking to them about being one of their artists, and it was a thing. Yeah, he's laughing now. Yeah, but I remember he was telling me that like he had this long conversation with the artist guy, and the artist guy was like, you know, he was asking if he can get some strings. He's like, but wait, you've been getting strings from us for years, and he's like, no, I'm a different Derek Frank. I'm not that guy. Yeah, so it gets
That's
confusing.
that's funny. Hey, so a couple of people have already bought your album.
Cool. Thanks,
Yeah.
guy.
So Thurman Moore is a bass player
Right on.
that I've met at Agape Church. Well, I don't
Oh,
know if we actually met, but the Agape Church, but we know
cool.
each other from there. And
Cool.
because of that, uh, I want to just, if Facebook doesn't shut us down because I don't have permission to play this music, Facebook police.
Oh, really? Does that happen if you like play
It
something that's copyrighted or copywritten?
Yeah, it happened to I had a guy come over and play some of his music from my house here. He played his tracks. After the show, it cut out all of anything that was his music because it said that we didn't have permission to play it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, apparently
Crazy.
if their algorithm recognizes that it's music that's copyrighted, it won't let you play
Wow,
it.
that's
And
weird.
then uh, apparently you have to get permission ahead of time. So what I do is if I start to play something, I try not to let it play long enough to let
Oh,
the
for them to catch you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You played little 10-second clips.
right. So I was just going to play a little bit of your CD and listen to it, um, and see what because people are liking it and I really
Cool.
like it. So this is just the
Cool.
first one.
Thanks. This is my 70s cop show tune.
What was that?
It's my 70s cop show tune.
All right, so I'm just going to tease people with these, but
Yeah, don't want you to
now,
get in trouble.
right? So yeah, you don't want to get in trouble playing your own music,
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no way that I can just on here say it's okay. He has my permission.
right? So what was the inspiration behind that, and who played the horns?
Okay, so that the inspiration behind that is just 70s cop shows, 70s movies. Like I've been watching a lot of 70s TV, um, and I just love the music. Music's incredible. And so, well, actually, on my first record, the first song I did on that record is a song called "Breakout" that I wrote. That kind of has that 70s cop show vibe as well. And so I kind of was thinking like on this one it'd be fun to like do another one, like open up this album with another one because I love that style of music. And when I watch those 70s TV shows, I'm just like, man, the music was so great on TV back then, you know? So that's kind of where that came from. I just wanted to go for that, you know, cop show, black exploitation, 70s movie kind of vibe. Um, and the horn section, that's the Fat City Horns from Las Vegas.
Oh, right, right. You
They
said
do a
that.
Monday night. They do a Monday night gig out there when it's not a pandemic, and it's a band called Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns, and they're just kind of like they've been doing it forever in Vegas, and it's a total musician hang out there.
You know,
Yeah.
I had Jerry Lopez on this
Oh,
show.
cool. Jerry's awesome.
Yeah, I
He's
mean
great.
that band is
Oh,
killing.
they're so good, and that's and like I'm a total fan. Like when I'm in Vegas, I typically have Mondays off, so we always go down there and check out the band. And so like when I was doing this record, I was like, oh man, I got to get the Fat City Horns on this.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So a little bit of the next one. I'm just going to kind of zip through this a little bit and play a little bit. Well, now this is the second tune. Oh, so you were playing through your bass through a processor or something there, right? Synth
On
bass
that
thing.
song,
Yeah. At
no, that's just a 63 P bass with flat wound strings straight up.
on that
Yeah.
dun dun
That's he's keyboard player is
synth.
doubling that on a clavinet.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds great. Hey,
Thanks.
Michael McAllister says he's seen you a couple of times with
Yeah.
Mindy at Jazz Alley.
Yeah. Love those gigs. Love the Jazz Alley. We used to with Mindy Abair, we used to do actually she probably still does. I mean, not this year, but we used to do Valentine's weekend every year and we'd go up and play like a 4 or 5 nighter at Jazz Alley, which is a great club in Seattle. And I always loved those. We would do 2 shows a night usually, and then yeah, it was like 4 or 5 nights. I always look forward to that time in Seattle. It was always such a great time, and we were always so tight by the end of that run. We actually recorded an album there. We joined forces with a band called the Bone Shakers back in 2014, and we had like a few rehearsals or something Mindy put together with Randy Jacobs, the guitarist who's the leader of the Bone Shakers, and we decided to put it together. And so we had a few rehearsals, and things were just gelling. They were just sounding really good. So we went up to Seattle at Jazz Alley to do our Valentine's Day weekend shows. And she hired someone to come in and record it and just see what happened. And we ended up making a live album out of that. Like we had just started playing together, and the chemistry was right. And yeah, it ended up being a really great live album recorded at Jazz Alley. Yeah,
Nice,
great
nice.
place. Yeah.
That's a great place. It's been around for a while.
I love Jazz Alley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And,
I miss doing it. I'm not playing with Mindy anymore, but I always looked forward to those gigs.
and this would have been the weekend that you go because it's
Yeah,
Valentine's Day weekend.
yeah,
I'm going to play just a couple more
cool.
and listen to this one. That's George likes bananas.
George likes the bananas.
So what is that?
If you're a Seinfeld fan, then you know.
Oh,
There's a great one of my favorite Seinfeld episodes is the puffy shirt episode where George becomes a hand model, and there's a great exchange between George's parents where he's like, filing his nails and stuff, and he's getting ready to become a hand model, and his mom asks him if he wants some Jello, and then the husband says, "Why'd you put the bananas in there?" And then she just yells, "George likes the
oh,
bananas." So somehow that just became the song title. I'm
oh,
a
that
huge Seinfeld fan. It's pretty much all I watch on TV.
oh, that's good. Hey, question: how often do you take session work, and
Yeah.
how much session stuff and parts are you playing?
Yeah, I mean, I take session work whenever it comes up, especially this year because there's no live music. So whenever I get hit up to do some tracks, I'm doing it. So yeah,
Are you getting many calls from TV hits and cues, those kinds of things?
not really, man. I never really got into the whole TV and film thing. Like most of the sessions I get called for are records or singles, you know,
Mm.
um, you know, in different genres, but just yeah, more music for records and singles. Like I don't I have done some film and TV stuff, but not much. Yeah. Although actually just recently, I did a pretty fun one. There was in the fall, I think it was, or maybe yeah, towards the end of last year, there was a new Bill and Ted movie that came out
Mm.
called Bill and Ted Face the Music, and me and a couple of my bandmates from Shania's band recorded the title track called Face the Music, and it's like the big epic song at the end where they play the Bill and Ted and their band play the song that saves the universe, and it's us playing, and I got to play the part of Death. The Death is the bass player in the band, and so when he's playing, it's my stuff. So that was kind of fun to do. And that actually got nominated for a Grammy. The soundtrack did. So we'll find out in March if we got a Grammy for it. So that was kind of cool.
Yay.
So that was like one of the few film things that I've done, but I don't do a ton of that. There are some guys that do tons of film and TV sessions. I'm just not one of them. It comes up every now and then, but yeah, most of my stuff is just for people's records.
It seems that to be in a certain circle, you get called and all of a sudden you're there and then they just think of you all the time. And
Sure.
once that circle is it's not that it's closed, but it's just you just get in that circle and sometimes it's hard to penetrate.
Yeah, yeah, of course, until until the person who's the main guy is too busy to do a session, you get called to sub, and then maybe you start getting called more often because the other guy can't, he's busy with other stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, and yeah, just we all kind of fall into certain circles out here. Like I feel like my main thing has just been like live playing and touring. That's kind of like
Mm.
the scene that I've fallen into more so than like film and TV sessions and stuff like that. But I mean, I do session work in between the touring, but there are some guys that just like that's what they do. They are just in the studio all the time, you know.
Do you, Thurman is saying he's taken lessons with Bunny Burnell. Do you remember
Oh
Bunny
yeah.
Burnell
Oh cool. Right on. Yeah,
with
yeah.
Chick Corea and Al
Yeah, I know
Mazzuti and
yeah, I know Bonnie Brunel. Right on.
yeah, and Tom
Cool.
Breckline was playing drums, I think, with that Chick Corea
Oh yeah,
version.
yeah. That was around the time of was it Mad Hatter, like that record
I
era?
think a little
Or
after that,
was
Mad
it after
Hatter
that?
was
Okay.
still Gad.
Oh, it was. Okay, so that was like right after Three Quartets.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, so that was probably like early 80s, I guess. Maybe.
I don't remember the time, but Tom Breckline, Bunny Brunell, Al Mazzuti, and I forget who was on guitar. Maybe there wasn't one that
Mm.
came after Gad and those, and then that was in between when Weckl came and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
those
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. Yeah.
What Bunny had a really distinct sound,
Mhm. I
and
haven't really dug into his playing much. Like I've met him and stuff, and I know some of the stuff he does. I know he's got ridiculous chops. I've heard him in town a few times, like at Baked Potato and Cafe Cordial when that was around. I remember hearing
mhm.
him play, but I haven't really dug into him too much, and I should. I should check him out because he's a guy that I've known about for years, and we've met, and just haven't really dug into his playing a whole lot.
Okay, well, last thing, a couple of things. Uh, while you're talking about live playing and the places to play, and when the pandemic is over, there's really is even no place to play anymore for some of the kind of stuff we have done and the kind of music we're talking about. The baked potato is kind of like the only place, right, other than maybe Catalina Jazz Club,
Mm.
maybe. Uh,
Yeah, because we lost the Blue Whale, unfortunately. Yeah,
yeah,
Blue
so
Whale closed down, and just over the years, we've lost some cool venues like, yeah, Cafe Cordial, we lost Cozy's, you know. Yeah, and there's some other places, but, yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like even before the pandemic, I was kinda out of the loop. Just between touring and Vegas, I, like, wasn't really making the rounds to some of the local jams and things like that anymore.
mhm.
So I know there were some new places popping up. I don't know, I was just kind of out of the loop for a bit.
You know, I think when you're busy and when there's a day off, I don't really even care to go to a club. You know what really is awful is we don't live far away, but you know how close the baked potato is to us.
Yeah, yeah,
And
right there.
how often I go, yeah, I should go over check out the band and I'm like, nah. You know,
Sometimes you just get, sometimes you just wanna be home, and that was kinda my thing, like, starting in, like, 2015 or so, I just got slammed for a few years, and I was touring so much, and I just when I was home, I just wanted to be home, and I wasn't
mm,
really getting out much, you know? But I do try to get out as often as I can, and I love the baked potato. Like, when I first moved to town, I was there practically every night, just trying to meet musicians, and I played there a lot with my band and with other bands over the years. So when things do open up again, that's the first place I'm gonna try to play with my band.
oh, great.
I mean,
Hey,
it's like home.
and get the band together, go play. I will go.
Cool.
I will pay the cover charge.
Right on.
You know, where did you move from? Where are you from originally?
Well, originally Pittsburgh, but
Oh.
I moved all over the place before I got to LA. I went to college in Miami, and after college in Miami, I went to Boston for a short time, for a little less than a year. Then I moved to LA. So
Mm,
I came to LA from Boston, but Boston was never like home. It was only I was yeah, there less than a
yeah.
year.
And you've been here ever since.
Been here for almost 24 years now. Yeah, it'll be
Wow.
24 years in May. Yeah, crazy.
And you met Annette here.
I did. Yeah.
Okay. And now how long have you guys been married?
We've been married almost 16 years. It'll
Wow.
be 16 years in March. Yeah, yeah, next month.
Congratulations. And
Thanks.
then do you have a second house up at Arrowhead?
We've kinda got into the real estate game over the years, so we've actually got 4 properties right now. Um,
Nice.
we've a house in Nashville that's a full-time rental. We have tenants there, so we don't get there that often. We have a condo in Mammoth that's an Airbnb. We went into that with my cousin, so we share that with him, but it's an Airbnb condo that we rent out. And then, just in September, July really, we bought a house in Park City, Utah. Um, yes, we moved into that in September, so we've been there a lot. We've been spending a lot of time in Park City. We're just going back and forth between Park City and LA, and we're here in Burbank in LA now. But we've been spending a lot of time out there just because there's not much to do in LA. So I've just been out in Park City snowboarding a ton and mountain biking, and yeah,
There there's a lot of snow. There's a lot of snow in Park
we've
City.
been getting some lately. Yeah, it took us a while. It was a slow season, but that's my thing. Like, outside of music, like, snowboarding is my second passion.
Really?
So I'm just trying to do as much of that right now as possible because I'm not able to not able to play gigs.
Yeah. I I I grew up in Nebraska and way back when I used to drive when I lived in San Francisco and I drive from there to Nebraska, I drive through Park City and
Oh, cool.
that big hill up out
Mhm.
of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man.
Harleys, yeah.
It was gnarly in the winter.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll bet.
All right. So, I don't know why anybody would want to move from your house that is right behind the best bakery in the world, but you know,
We've got a good neighborhood. We got some solid spots out here. We got Portos and, yeah, yeah, Burbank's great. And you're still in Burbank, right? You're a couple
yeah,
blocks away?
I'm right over by Disney.
Yeah, you're just a few blocks away.
Yeah, I love Burbank.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to play one more song,
Cool.
and I think this is the one. I think this is the one that I used in my. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, you know what I think about when I hear this? It just brings it makes me think of the baked potato and Jeff Lorber and that
Mm,
whole
cool.
that kind of vibe.
It has kind of the vibe of like, yeah, like maybe some Jeff Lorber, some, you know, Tom Scott, LA Express, some of that like kind of
Yeah.
late 70s sort of smooth groove stuff, you know? Um, that was a fun one. That was a song we co-wrote. I came up with kind of the bass line and the chords and kind of like the structure of the song, and then passed it around. Like when I was stuck on a melody, I passed it to Josh, the guitarist. He came up with the A section melody, and then the C section of that song needed a melody for that. Passed it to Ty. So it was a fun little co-write on that one.
Nice. I love the record,
Thank
and
you.
it's
Thank
nice.
you.
It's easy to listen to.
Thanks,
It's
man.
fun, and I'm glad that I got you on the show and was able to play the music. And a
Cool.
couple of people bought this
Yeah.
the album tonight. That
Thanks,
was
guys.
great.
Thanks,
And
guys.
I want to say hello to Annette,
Right on. She
and
says hi as well.
I'm
She's like,
looking
"Oh, you're
forward.
talking to Jeff. That's great."
Yeah.
She's a fan.
Well, we it would be really fun when this all when you guys this is I got it. I've got the plan. When the pandemic's over and it's in summer, you have a big shindig at your Park City joint, and we'll come from all four corners of the country
Yeah.
and land there.
Let's do it. Yeah.
That sounds like
You're
fun.
welcome anytime. Yeah.
I'll bring up a sound system,
Oh man.
and everybody can play.
Oh, our neighbors out there would love it. They're super cool. Like everybody's pretty laid back out there, and we're in an area where it's just, yeah, people are just super laid back. And if we had a band playing in the driveway, everybody in our neighborhood would love that.
See, that would be cool.
Because it's not common out there. It's like it's not a music city. I mean, they're very supportive of music. It is a very arts oriented town, but it's a mountain town. It's not LA. You know, everybody's used to live music. Live music isn't as much of a special thing out here because there's so much of it. But like, go to a place like Park City, like yeah, we set up in the driveway and played. I think everybody would come out. That'd be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to close out the show, and we're going to. I have the little window that'll come up, and the pre-roll will play, and it will end on that song we just played, I believe.
Cool, cool.
All right. So thank you, Derek,
Yeah,
and
good chatting
uh,
with you.
yeah, it was great. Okay.
All
Good
right.
night,
Well, have a
everybody.
great night. Well, yeah, thanks guys for tuning in, and man, hope to see you soon, Jeff.
All right.
Cool.